introduction notes for Hamlet. As a start, yes, I know we've covered William Shakespeare before when we were doing sonnets, but now within getting into plays, there are different things of his life you need to understand. First of all, he was born in 1564 and died in 1616. He was born in a small little city called Stratford-upon-Avon, which is not far outside of London, England. At the age of 18, he married a woman named Anne Hathaway. Obviously, it's not the same Anne Hathaway that's an actress today. Together, they had 3 children, the oldest named Susanna, and then younger twins named Hamnet and Judith. Yes, Hamnet was named after Hamlet. Hamnet, though, unfortunately died at the age of 11. During his writing career of 23 years, which you see down here, Shakespeare wrote 37 plays, 154 sonnets, and 2 long narrative poems. Long narrative poems would be like the equivalent of like the Odyssey or the Iliad, very lengthy, very condensed or very verbose in what it's saying. All of his information was written during 2 time periods, either the Elizabethan era or the Jacobean era. When Queen Elizabeth passed away in 1603, King James I took over, who was the King of Scotland. But Queen Elizabeth I had no heirs, so she named King James I, who was her cousin, as the heir to the throne of England. Now, he was also the first king to unite and rule over all of Great Britain, not just England itself. Now, the courts were fashioned after the king and the queen of the time period. Queen Elizabeth liked comedies and romances and that type of stuff, not much into the tragedy, but King James I very much liked the tragedies and tragic comedies. So that is what the authors wrote during the time period with the hope of being able to perform in front of the king. So Hamlet was one of the very first plays that was written in 1603 and performed for King James I. Here we have the Old Globe Theater. Noticing here, the Old Globe Theater was designed specifically by Shakespeare. Here, noticing this is a cutout of the theater itself. This theater is 3 stories high. Down here, you have the groundlings. This is where people could pay a penny to stand and watch. This is where most of the peasants watched the action. And then we have 3 stories of box seats. Each box has rows, 2 or 3 rows of bleachers in it for people to sit. The higher class you were, the higher your seats are. Now, noticing here on the stage that the stage does jut out into the audience, allowing it to be interactive, meaning that if someone were to get stabbed on stage and they're close to the edge of the stage, they could end up falling on the audience and the audience catching them. Audience members can throw things at them, can grab their legs. It is meant to be very interactive. Also noticing there are no curtains. Scene changes didn't happen. The play was continuous action for 2 to 3 hours, and people would just come in and out the doors, and they talked about the scenery more than they actually had scenery. But noticing it does have a balcony for the famous balcony scene in Romeo and Juliet. The plays themselves, Shakespeare breaks them up perfectly according to the plot diagram. In Act 1, we will learn about the exposition or the prologue. We will meet the main characters. We will have the settings explained, and we will start that initial aspect into conflict. As we get into Act 2, it is all increase in conflict and rising action. In Act 3, we get to the we finish off rising action, and at the very last scene of Act 3, we get into the climax of the play. By putting the climax toward the middle of the play, Shakespeare is showing the importance of the resolution itself, because his falling action is going to be longer than most stories, which fall right off after the climax. He likes to take a long time to wrap it up. So Act 4 will be all falling action, and then Act 5 will be a resolution. We have some basic ideas here. with the idea of our setting, a main character, and the tragic hero. The setting of Hamlet is in a castle in Elsinore in Denmark. Hamlet, our main character, is away at school, and specifically college in Germany. He, being our main character, is returning home from college after his father has died. It's only a month or two afterward, and he comes home expecting to be king and finds out that instead his mother has married his uncle, and his uncle is now the king of Denmark. Okay, we also have this concept called a tragic hero. In any tragedy, you have to have a hero. In this case, though, a tragic hero is that something's going to happen to them. So they are a person of noble birth that is in good standing within their society. Hamlet is our tragic hero. He is a college student. He is of noble birth. He has a very good standing within society. But unfortunately, he has a tragic flaw, or a hamartia, that leads to his downfall. Okay? Here we have the family tree of Hamlet, finding that when we did homegoing, the family tree was very important. So here we have this idea of King Hamlet was married to Gertrude. Together they had Hamlet. They only had the one kid. King Hamlet died, and his brother Claudius almost immediately married Gertrude. So now Claudius is the stepfather of Hamlet, as well as the uncle and nephew, and he is married to Gertrude. On the side here, we have another little family. That Polonius here is an older gentleman who is an advisor or assistant to Claudius. Okay, he has two children. His two children's names are Laertes and Ophelia. Ophelia and Hamlet are in love with each other, but it's a rather dysfunctional love relationship. Okay, last slide. We have three different types of speeches that take place in plays. Monologue and soliloquy here, both are lengthy speeches, but the difference between them is the idea of who's on stage with them or not. So a soliloquy is a lengthy speech given alone on stage. The character is talking to the audience and revealing their inner thoughts of the character. Now, them being alone on stage, the easy way to remember is this: they're solo. So soliloquy equals solo. Whereas a monologue is a lengthy speech given to other characters on the stage. So mono means one, just like solo means one, but solo is an alone. Mono just means one speaker. So they can talk to as many characters, but the characters are there on stage. Okay, aside. An aside is that where a character on stage addresses the audience or another character in a whisper, but the other characters can't hear it. So as an idea, if I'm giving a big speech in class and one student decides to make a little funny joke that only another student can hear, that is an aside. That student laughs. Other people around them might laugh. It's an aside. It's not part of the main action. Oftentimes when this happens, we will see laughter happening. The audience will be aware of what's going on, but even though it's a whisper, it's loud enough for the other character and the audience to hear, but the main characters not involved in the aside are supposed to ignore what was being said. Okay, I will see you in class tomorrow. Enjoy.